fade, whether they want it close, a shadow, a 1 on the side to a 4 on the top. You can do any kind of fade off of these practices or principles, okay? So basically, you want to get an idea of what they want. There's technically 4 different types of fades. You have a low fade, you have a mid fade, and you have a high fade. And then there's also a taper fade or temple fade, which is just this area and the back. All right, so those are pretty much going to be the 4 basics. And with these steps that I show you today, you should be able to perform any of them. The only difference is the amount of transition space that you have. Does anybody know what that is when I say transition space?
Blending.
Blending. The amount of space you have to blend.
Yeah.
So typically, the lower the fade, the more space you have to blend. The easier it is for transition.
Can I record this?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, starting with a ball fade, I'm very keen on like efficiency and not overworking myself. So most people are gonna go in and put their ball line in with an edger or an outliner, or what y'all use are like peanuts. I don't do that. So basically, whatever clipper you use or you're most comfortable with, you close it all the way up to what we call a 0. So a ball fade is basically what? 0 to whatever amount of hair you want on the top. That's the only question you got. How much hair you want on the top?
Keep it dark, like a 1 on top.
Like 1 on the top, keep it dark. Okay, if you hear keep it dark or they want it dark, like dark on the top, that means they want their hair on the top cut with the grain. Everybody knows this with the grain, right?
Yeah.
So basically, I'll take a 1 guard and I'll go with the grain because obviously he wants waves or something.
It's spinning up there, man.
But before you turn on,
down for us.
yeah, before you turn on any clipper or anything like that, you want to comb through the hair. Why?
To keep it in the same direction.
To analyze the hair.
That's it. He wasn't supposed to be speaking.
Oh, my God.
All right, when you're dealing with hair that's closer to the scalp or on the scalp, you want to pay attention to the hair growth and the growth pattern. So if he comes in and say, I comb my hair to the back, if he's not planning on like wearing it that way forever, I'm not going to cut his hair the way he combs it. Why? I mean, it's all hair. Like if somebody comes in and say they wanted a short taper fade or something like that, and they say I style my hair to the left, you're gonna do everything to the left, right? So when they do style it themselves at home, it'll look decent, right?
Right.
Why not? I was wondering why not.
No, I'm saying I'm not gonna cut it because it's closer to the scalp. Like with long layers or with long hair, you can comb it over there, and no matter which way she plays with it, it's not gonna have an immediate effect. If he combs his hair to the back and I cut it to the back, what if he decides to brush it forward one day? It's gonna be uneven. All right, so you always want to cut it in the direction that it grows. So for Trinity, I do multiple things when I decide how I'm going to place a fade. Most people don't care where you place a fade; they just want a ball fade. So with him, as you can see, the back of his profile, he has a lot going on back here. I'm not going to drop it down here because it's going to be an eyesore. Because all this is going to be bald. This is all they're going to look at. So basically, how I'm going to do it is I'm going to drop it. I'm going to come here. I'm going to go below this, and I'm going to go back around to the other side. That way, it's not visually attracting people's eyes into that spot. Or if I wanted to take a shortcut, I'll bald it all the way up here above that line, and that way your eye's not drawn to those spots. And then it's extremely difficult to try to fade in here. So I changed that. I'm gonna go high. You'll be alright. Another reason I chose to do a bald fade on Trinity is because of his hairline. Don't feel bad. Basically, you're gonna put a lot of work on yourself if you try to do a taper fade or like a shadow fade or something like that, because his outline is not very easy to see. So basically, you run into 2 situations: either you're gonna push him way back, which can prevent further hair loss, or you're gonna have to do what we did last time, do like a ghost hairline, and it won't look that good. So you want to do what looks good. All right. Now they're on, so.
Okay, now you can cut.
No.
I almost, like in that moment, I was like, what?
No.
I know I just asked.
So with Trinity, his hair grows, like everything kind of from the top, or from the crown, it kind of shoots towards the front. But he does have this swirl in the back, so you always want to pay attention to that before you go in. Because if you go against the grain, we got to go bald. That's their motto in class. They got to go bald. So I'm going to stay away from the beard area right now because I don't know how I want to do it. But this is all the way closed, and I'm basically just putting in my first gouge.
he just took you bald trying to be.
That's cool.
Alright, when you set in guidelines with clippers, unlike using another reason I use the clippers to do the most of the hard work or the bulk or whatever, because if you go in and use your edges to do this, they're gonna get dull really, really fast. And you're gonna find yourself changing blades like once every 2 or 3 months. Like I said, we all did this to try to make money, right? We don't want to be spending money on tubes and implements.
Trinity, do that hurt? It don't. I feel like it'd be hurt because you have to put pressure in it. That thing already heavy and I've gotten my side shave before. It hurt.
And you went to the wrong person. It shouldn't hurt. Like you said, he wanted it to be dark on the top. So basically, I have our universal guards, and basically what we use, they're magnetic. They go from like a 0 up to like an 8. But they come in 2 separate packages or whatever. I use these because they fit on multiple clippers and they're magnetic. So basically I have a 1 guard, it's all the way closed, and I'm basically just gonna get a finishing point rather. So I know I have a 0 and I know he wants a 1 on the top. So I don't confuse myself, I go ahead and cut the top to the desired length that it is. So I'm not gonna use any more guards because his hair is not gonna be longer than the 1 guard on the top. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the lower they want their hair on the top and the ball fade, the easier it'll be to do it. Trinity is complicated.
Why you go down?
Because
Get a difference in the cut?
yeah, because he wanted to keep it dark. I'll explain that in a second too. So I did everything on the side downward for a reason, because when I go back against the grain, I'll show you the difference. All right. Yeah, this is the 1 guard. It's all the way closed. Yeah. So what most people do when they pick up clippers, they're ultimately scared because 1, there's something vibrating in your hand, and 2, they don't know how to use it. So most mistakes people make when they first start cutting is they set the clipper like this and they go across the top of the head. You see what's happening?
Nothing coming out.
There's nothing cutting, right? So you want to make sure whatever clipper you use, and if it has this beveled blade on the front, that you want to angle it down. That way you're actually cutting something. That's why I prefer the masters over the walls, because y'all hear that?
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually hear hair falling off. You might not necessarily see it, but you can hear it. And that's always a good sign, because we're human and we don't see everything. But if you can hear it, then you know that it's working.
So like the guards on the center too. Is it a difference in the guard?
Yeah, the difference between these guards and the ones you use on your wall is basically this flat part right here. It gives you a more precise cut. So the walls kind of have that little curve in it. That's why I don't really like them. What you do with that case? You grab one of those guards out there, maybe like a 3 or a 4. And you can pass those around so you can see the difference. My bad. Back to what I was saying earlier about symmetry. What I do to one side, I want to ensure that I do to the other. That's why that ball line went all the way around. When I do the top, I want to make sure I work from one side to the other and I go all the way around. So next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to set it in my second guideline. Typically in my basic, or in a basic fade, you have 2 guidelines. You have the length that they wanted at the bottom, and then you have the transition space. So who knows what level the transition space might start?
2. No.
Not a 2?
2 or 3.
2 or 3?
A half.
2 or 3.
2 or 3?
Because the top is 1.
Half.
So.
A half?
Yeah. No, it's 1. It's 1.
It's definitely not a 2. We'll eliminate the 2 because it's a 1 that I use.
Yeah.
So
It's a 1 close.
She said it in the back.
No guard.
No go. Oh.
Typically, I would set it with no guard.
What if we're scared and we need to use the guard?
It's the same thing. So if I take this off and I open it up, this is literally the same length
Okay.
as
And
a
that,
one close. So, but if you're scared and you want to use the one, you can do that too. I do it because it saves time, and this is the guard I'm going to be using to blend the sides in with the top anyways. So, rule of thumb, whatever you use to take the top down, say if you took a 2 on the top, you would use a 2 or you would use a 1 open to set in your second guideline. But I use a 1 on the top, so I'm going to basically close it. I'm going to flip it over, and this is the difference between going with the grain and going against it. So you see the level is at when I went with the grain, right? So this is a 1 against the grain. Alright, the line I just created is kind of faint, and that's intentionally because I don't want to overwork myself. So you don't want to get in the habit of putting extremely hard lines in your haircuts because it's going to be extremely hard to get them out. So, but now you can still see the difference between 0, 1 against the grain, and a 1. Right? Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
So you see the difference? So if you would have went across the top with this 1 going against the grain, and he said he wanted it dark, this is basically what you would have got.
We got a light.
Alright, so I don't confuse myself and I can actually see what I'm doing. The reason, like, we typically as barbers, we cut away from the mirror. One, because if you're in the chair, you don't want to look at yourself looking like this, right? It leads to a lot of questions, so it only helps you. Also, I do that so I can use the mirror as a reference point, because whatever I can't see, the mirror is going to show it to me. So if you can look in the mirror, you can see this ball line. You can see the second line that I put in, and you can see where we left it on the top. So who knows what the next step might be? What were you using scissors for?
I don't know. You asked the question, I gave an answer.
Yeah. So I like to work from the top down. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this line out first, and then I'm going to go down and work this line out. The reason I do that is because if I start from this line and I'm trying to knock it out, my fade, the ball line is going to end up way up here. Because your eye is like, it's visually going to play tricks on you. So if you try to blend this line out here, you've knocked the line out, but it looks like you put another line here. So you're going to think that is, oh, that's the ball line. So you're going to keep going up. It's going to just, the fade is going to get higher and higher, and that's not what you want. So basically, you're going to knock this line out first, and you're going to work your way down. So what level should I be at to knock this line out?